Welcome to everybody. Let us talk about the new topic, that is the natural disasters and its management. So we shall talk about the earthquakes and floods in part one, and the remaining natural disasters we shall discuss in the part two. So what is natural disaster? It is a sudden and extreme event caused by natural processes of the earth that results in significant damage to life, property, and the environment. These disasters are beyond human control because of natural in nature, but their impacts can be reduced through proper preparedness and management. So, what are the different types of natural disasters? We can see the first one is the what are the different types of disasters? Natural disasters and man-made disasters. Natural disasters are caused by the natural forces. Examples: earthquakes, floods, cyclones, drought, and volcanic eruptions. So, in this lectures, we are studying only about the earthquakes and floods. The remaining these cyclones and the droughts, volcanic eruptions, we shall study in the next lecture, part two. So, man-made disasters, these are caused by human actions, industrial accidents, nuclear explosions, oil spills, fire, wars, pollution. These are the man-made disasters, we can say. We are not going to discuss in detail about the man-made disaster because in our syllabus we have to study only about the natural disasters. So what do you mean by natural disaster management? It is a systematic process of planning, organizing, and implementing measures to prevent, mitigate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from the impacts of natural disasters. So the first we shall talk about the earthquakes. The earthquake crust is divided into large plates called tectonic plates. When these plates collide, slide past, or move away from each other, what is going to happen? Stresses are going to be built up and is suddenly released as seismic waves causing an earthquake. The earthquake is measured in Richter scale. This Richter scale was developed in the year 1935 by Charles F. Richter, who was an American seismologist, in collaboration with Benno Gutenberg at the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, USA. Caltech is the short form of California Institute of Technology. From then, it has become a fundamental tool in seismology for quantifying the size of seismic events or earthquake. So we shall see here Richter scale magnitude classifications. So Richter scale is divided into the following magnitude categories. Suppose the earthquake is less than 2 Richter. In that case, generally it is not felt but can be detected by the seismograph, which is a instrument to measure the magnitude of earthquake. When the magnitude is in between 2 and 2.9, in that case, earthquake often felt but rarely causes damage. It comes under the slight categories when the earthquake is in between 3 to 3.9. It is noticeable shaking of indoor objects and rattling noises. Minor damage is possible in this earthquake. When the earthquake varies in between 4 to 4.9, it comes under the light category. And in this case, moderate shaking and rattling takes place. Minor to moderate damage is possible. We can say the earthquake is moderate when the reached 5 to it occurs in between 5 and 5.9 Richter scale. So what we feel in this case, a strong shaking and ground rolling. And in this case, moderate to severe damage is possible. We can call the earthquake as a strong earthquake when it occurs in between 6 to 6.9. Severe shaking and ground ruptures and major damage is likely to occur. Major earthquake we can say when we are going to experience the magnitude of the earthquake in between 7 and 7.9. Very strong shaking and ground rupture will be there. Widespread major damage is likely to occur. So great earthquake, when we can call it as great, when the magnitude is 8 or greater. In this case, devastating shaking and ground rupture is going to be experienced, and catastrophic damage is likely to occur. So next we can see under the earthquakes, large magnitude earthquakes, when it is going to occur below the ocean surface, it disturb the water surface and create large damaging waves called tsunami. In India, as we know, earthquake happens along the Himalaya foothills and in several parts of the country where active faults are present. These have resulted in death and property damage. So, what precautions and preparedness are required to be maintained before and during or after the earthquakes that we shall discuss in this section. And the following precautions and preparedness are necessary to minimize loss of life and property damage due to earthquakes. So first we can say public awareness and education is needed. Educate people, better to educate people about what to do before, during and after an earthquake. We should conduct the mock drills in schools, offices, residential area pertaining to the earthquake. Disseminate information through media, posters and training programs. The next precautions or preparedness is required. The earthquake resistance construction. New buildings should be constructed using earthquake resistant design and materials. Building codes and seismic zoning regulations should be followed strictly to control the earthquake problems. Strengthening, retrofitting old or weak buildings, bridges and dams should be carried out once it has been damaged by the earthquake, or we can say before damage itself we have to go for the strengthening of the old or weak buildings, bridges or dams, whatever it may be. Next precautions or preparedness, we can see emergency planning. Prepare a disaster management plan at household, community and institution levels. Identify safe places when earthquake is going to occur. In that case, we should identify the safe place for evacuation of the people, open grounds or safe buildings it may be. Keep emergency contact numbers. It should be readily available in case of emergency planning. Early warning and communication systems are needed. Install seismic monitoring system for early detection. Ensure proper communication networks for quick information sharing and rescue operations. Training and capacity building is also important. Train rescue teams. Rescue teams should be trained properly. Police, medical staffs and volunteers in case of emergency response and first aid. Encourage community participation in local disaster management groups. So these are the precautions and preparedness about the earthquakes. Now we shall talk about the floods. What is flood? A flood is a natural disaster that occurs when water overflows from rivers, lakes, reservoirs, or seas onto the normally dry land and submerging homes, roads, fields, and other areas. It happens, flood happens when the amount of water exceeds the capacity of natural or artificial drainage system. India faces flood every year with major rivers overflowing their banks. So what are the causes of the floods? The first cause we can see heavy rainfall. Continuous heavy rainfall raises the water level of rivers and drains, causing overflow. River overflow is also one of the cause of the floods. When river carries more water than their capacity, what is going to happen? The excess water spreads into the nearby lands or flood plains and cause the floods. Dam failure or sudden release of water. This is also one of the cause for the flood. So in this case, what happens? Collapse it when the dam or is going to be collapse or sudden, in that case, what is going to happen? Sudden release from the dams leads to floods in downstream areas. Snow melt is also one of the reason of the floods. Rapid melting of ice and snow in mountains increases river flow. Cyclones and storm surges, this is also one of the reasons. In this case, what happens? High tides and strong winds during cyclones push seawater into the coastal areas, causing coastal floods. Deforestation is also one of the reasons for the floods. In that case, what happens? Trees absorb rainwater, as we know. Cutting them, when you are going to cut the tree or deforestation, then it reduces the water infiltration and increases surface runoff, which will be the reason for the flood. Runoff means flowing water on the surface. It is not going to be absorbed in the water in the ground. So urbanization is also one of the reasons. Cemented surface in cities block natural water absorption, leading to urban flooding. Poor drainage system. In that case, what happens? Blocked or inadequate drain causing waterlogging and flooding during rains. So what are the effects of floods? The first effects we can see: loss of life and property. Flood cause drowning, collapse of houses, destruction of buildings and roads. It damages the damage to crops and livestock. Standing crops and farm animals are destroyed, leading to flood, shortage and economic loss. So next effect is the spread of diseases. Contaminated water spread disease like cholera, typhoid and malaria. Next we can see disruption of transport and communications. Roads, railways and power lines are damaged, isolating affected areas. The next one is the soil erosion and land degradation. Flood waters wash away fertile topsoil, reducing agricultural productivity. The last one is you can see economic loss. Businesses shut down during the flood time, and reconstruction cost become a financial burden on the government. So these are the effects of floods. Now, what are the preparedness and management is required as far as the flood is concerned? So the flood forecasting and early warning, use of meteorological data and flood monitoring system to alert people in advance can reduce the damage to property and loss of life from floods. Construction of dams and reservoirs are also required for the management of flood. In this case, what we can do, we to store excess rainwater and control river flow. Storage and use of rainwater can also solve the water shortage problems. So this is also one of the benefit. We can solve the water shortage problem. Embankments and levees are also needs to be built along the river banks to prevent the overflow. Proper drainage systems are required. In this case, improved city drainage to avoid waterlogging. Afforestation are also required because you plant trees to increase water absorption and reduce runoff. Zoning and land use planning, discouraging creation of valuable assets, settlement, industries of the people in the area subject to frequent flooding. Wherever the flood is going to occur on a regular basis, in that case, the valuable assets and settlements or industries should be avoided, right? The people should be discouraged not to construct the houses or industries in those areas. That is in flood prone area. A natural depression should be suitably improved and regulated if necessary so that water can be stored. The next we can see community awareness and educations are also needed for the flood management. Conduct flood drills and train people on how to respond during floods. Relief and rehabilitations are also needed in case of flood. So provide food, shelter, medicines and clean drinking water to flood affected people. Facilitating timely evacuation of the people and shifting their movable property to safer grounds by advanced forecasting of incoming flood. So in this lecture, we talked about what is a natural disaster, what are the various types of disaster, that is the natural and man-made disaster, what is natural disaster management, What do you mean by earthquake? What is Richter scale? How we can go for the precautions and preparedness of for the earthquake or in the at the time of earthquake? What is flood? Causes of floods, effects of floods, and what should be the preparedness and managements in case of a flood? So all these points we discuss in the lecture. Thank you.